All right, so good evening, everyone. My name is Medina Sani. I am the Associate Director for Programming with the FLI Network and also the Director of the Hop-In program. I am so excited to bring this really quick but information-packed workshop or program to you called FLI-By creating passive income. I'm joined today with my colleague Grace Galliani.
Hello.
And we have a special guest here to join us and share some insights, Mr. Kwaku Agyemang. Hello.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yes,
Happy to be
we are
here.
so excited to have Kwaku here as our guest speaker because he has tons of experience in creating passive income for himself, specifically when he was an undergrad, just like you. And so we're going to spend our time getting to know Kwaku and also hearing his stories and his insights on just that. Just some quick housekeeping rules. This workshop is intended to be really fast. And so we will not necessarily be taking any questions unless there's a lot of time. But if you do have any, feel free to email me directly. Grace will share our information in the chat. Kwaku is a native of New Jersey by way of Ghana. He attended Rutgers University, where he and I met because he was actually one of my students, where he was a student leader as a resident assistant. During his time at Rutgers, he was also the president of the Black Male Collective, which is similar to our BMI program that's run out of CDI, as well as a tutor. So while at campus, and those are just three of the things that are on his LinkedIn. He did many more things while he was on campus that essentially built his leadership skills. While there, he majored in business with a specialization in finance and entrepreneurship, I believe, and then started his professional career with an internship at Goldman Sachs and has worked his way up while working at Twitter, which is now called X, Spotify, and most importantly, before all of that jazz, while in high school, he met his co-founders, and they started the company Brownmill, which is an amazing clothing company, which we'll hear more about. So with all those things happening, Kwaku being amazing while in undergrad and even before then, welcome again to our short form interview session, Flyby. And what I want to start with is, before Brownmill, talk to us about your spirit of entrepreneurship in general and some of the experiences you've had up until this point.
For sure. Thank you for the great intro. So it all started pretty much in middle school. So she said I was from Ghana. My parents are immigrants from Ghana, West Africa. So that meant they're very cheap and even cheaper when it came to just clothing and fashion. I grew up in a Black neighborhood where you had to dress nicely to school. Like you had to have the Jordans, you had to have the Nikes, the polos. If not, you got made fun of. Unfortunately, my parents weren't really trying to spend $100 on Jordans, so I had to find other means. So just going to school, I realized there's other ways to make money. And I started just selling snacks like out of my locker in school. Like I'll go to BJ's, buy a couple snacks, and kind of hustle it throughout the hallways. And it was good money, but I'll always get in trouble. And then I met a friend who put me on to just the Polo Ralph Lauren outlets that was close to my house. And it was a great win-win for me because they were cheap and my parents like cheap clothes, but these clothes are also nice. So I'll go to these outlets and I'll buy a couple polos. I'll bring them to school. This is like in seventh and eighth grade. And I'll basically just sell them out my locker. Sometimes I'll miss class selling them out my locker, but it became like a big side hustle that we even had some of the teachers buying clothes for like their husbands and their cousins and grandkids off me. So I was making a lot of money. And then I had to figure out a way to grow my clientele. So of course I started looking online and I started an eBay business. So kind of had this clothing side hustle where I'll go to an outlet maybe every month. I'll take orders. The polo costs 15. I'll come back and sell for 50, 60, and then keep the profit to myself.
That
Yeah.
was and that was the start to the the clothing business empire.
Yeah, exactly. That was the start of Brownmill. I mean, so when I got to high school, I was kind of doing the same thing. I had my snacks, I had the clothes, and there was a couple guys that were in the school that were also doing clothing. I had a friend named Taha who was making graphic designs and putting them on t-shirts. another friend named Justice who made bow ties. And of course, we weren't really friends, but we kind of knew what everybody was doing. And it came to a point where I needed a bow tie for a wedding I was going to. I approached Justice. He made me a beautiful bow tie. I wore the bow tie and sold the bow tie on eBay a week later on eBay for a lot of money. And when Justice heard that, he was like, "Yo, can you help me sell these bow ties on eBay in school? I'd love for us to join like a collective." So we started a little hustle ourselves, and he named his bow ties after his grandparents, Brown. His grandfather's name was Brown, and his grandma's name was Mildred. So Brownmill. So they're Brownmill bow ties. And then when Tyler heard we're like making money, he's like, "Can you guys sell my t-shirts?" Justice hit him like a 360 deal, like, "Hey, if you're gonna sell under us, they're gonna be called Brown Mill t-shirts too." And that's how the company started. They'll make the clothes and now sell them on the locker.
Yeah, that's an awesome, an awesome story for a lot of different reasons. One, so you had the business acumen from the beginning because you were already thinking about how to actually sell it and how to grow your clientele. Justice had sort of like the branding and marketing idea already wrapped up, and Taha was already thinking about designs and how to essentially make some of these things attractive and marketable to whoever your audience was. Now, you mentioned selling snacks and also selling t-shirts. What are some of the things or factors that even as you grew along in your hustles, what are some of the like really foundational things you had to consider as you were sort of navigating it?
For sure. I think the biggest thing is time management. Throughout all this, I was a student. I was going to class, doing homework. So you need to figure out how to still get your stuff done. And that's one thing I struggled with all throughout high school and freshman year. It got to a point where I was dedicating all my time to selling snacks and selling clothes. I was forgetting to go to class. And it took like a sit down, like a come to like Jesus moment. My parents sat down like, "Hey, like we know you like entrepreneurship, but you're in school right now. So like go to class, get good grades, and figure out how to do it." So just figuring out the time balance and also just being able to communicate and being confident. When you're selling anything, you're gonna get a lot of no's, especially when you're younger. People could be very mean with their no's. So for me, I just couldn't take things personal at a young age. It was just kind of like, okay, take it on the chin and keep it moving.
Can you talk to us also about like understanding how to identify what is the best side hustle? So a lot of folks often, when they think, "Oh, I want to make more money on the side," usually they think, "What can I sell?" But oftentimes it's not about selling products, it's about finding needs, which also you demonstrated in how you and Justice and Taha got together. Each of you had a different need. So can you talk to our students about that, like how to um, spot where or how to discern what would be the best entrepreneurial journey based on need.
For sure. I feel like in college, there's so many ways to make money. It could be a product like selling a snack or a t-shirt, or it could be a service. I
Mm-hmm.
know when I was in school, this is before AI and ChatGPT, during XPOS, a lot of us would get bad grades because we had bad grammar. We didn't know how to like piece our sentences together. And we had this one girl who was like properly trained in just like the English language. Like she knew how to piece everything together. So she would proofread everybody's papers for $10. And she would make sure you had your sentence and your comments right. And that was her side hustle. And like, it was something that she was already good at and she was making money off. We had college barbers who would do like shape ups in the bathroom. We had people who were braiding hair. So there's a lot you could do. I think number one, social media is like the best way to figure out what the pain point is because when we complain as millennials or what generation we are, we take it to social media. So you might hear a lot of people say like, this math class is super hard. I can't pass this teacher. And maybe you pass before, you could start tutoring. Or people are saying like, "Hey, like the buses suck on campus. If you have a car, maybe you could start your own Uber service." So there's just different things that you could take. I think it should be aligned with something you already have. Like if you're already good at braiding, start a hair braiding business. It shouldn't be anything that requires a lot of startup money because in college, you're probably not swimming in money yet. So definitely keep it lean.
So what I'm hearing is start with what you already have naturally, right? The things
Sure.
that you're good at, but also as opposed to participating in the what's so terrible, what's so unfun, all the lemons of wherever it is that you are. Write those things down and figure out what's a quick and dirty in some kind of way solution, or a way to assuage some of these issues or complaints that folks have. And then, of course, you add your sticker price.
Yeah,
You
mark it up.
charge for it. Right, right.
Sure.
Find the problem and then charge people for the solution. And there you have it, right? Then you have your business and your side hustle. Um, so I'm curious also, right? Because not all side hustles make you into a millionaire, right? There's some people who start a lot of things and it really just doesn't go anywhere. If you're lucky, you're able to, revamp or, reimagine it with a team or whatever. But how do you figure out what's actually worth pursuing? What are some of the things that you should be asking yourself, or maybe even querying your friends or colleagues about to determine, this is one of my favorite sayings, if the juice is worth the squeeze. I love office talk. What are the things that you should be considering to know, like, you've been doing that, you've been at this YouTube channel for 5 years and you have
Yeah,
36
right.
subscribers and 16 of those subscribers are from your family. Let it go. Like, how do you what things should you consider when you're determining worth?
Um,
Like, oh no, how did Medina find out about me?
yeah, it definitely has to be value for value. So, when you're working on a project, you're putting a lot of value, which is your time. So, what is the value that's coming back to you? Is it branding, your personal brand, or is it money? And if it is money, how are you quantifying it? So for me, I'm a numbers guy. So like every year I'll come in and I'm like, hey, I want to hit this number. And if we don't hit this number, it's not a good year. And like if I had like a lot of bad years, I would be like, okay, this is not working. So with Brownmill, it was like every quarter, I'm like, okay, this is how much inventory we had. I want to sell at least half of this. And every time we sell half, I'm like, all right, we're keeping it moving. So you kind of have to set those goals for yourself. Other
Mm.
people can't really set those goals for you. So if you do have that TikTok channel, you're getting 50 views, maybe your goal is 100 views, and somebody looks at it and it's like, yo, that's super low. But for you, that's like a big thing. So if it is 100 views, keep that to yourself. But I think another thing to that is like the value of if you want to make money off it. A lot of
Mm.
people have these like gifts or these like ideas and they put it out there, but they're scared to charge people. And let's say their friends like they do hair braiding, their friends need their hair braiding. Like, I do charge 50, but you're my homegirl, so it's free. You keep on doing that, you braided 5 heads and now you didn't make any money. So you
Mhm.
gotta kind of stand firm on like how much you're pricing it because that is your value. Your time is your value. So having those set goals can help you discern if this is going to work for you or not.
Thank you. I love that. That goes with a lot of things, right? Your goals essentially keep you on track and it lets you know that you're not meandering in the world or just kind of being blown left and right. Same thing with money
Yeah.
goals, right? Like, or non-financial goals. Like, these metrics or benchmarks, better yet, that, okay, I'm on the right track versus, okay, well, I'll just go where I've been told. So that's super important. Now, you just mentioned that you were a money guy. We know that you majored in finance while you were at Rutgers. So, can you talk to us about, like, to what degree you sort of melded what you were learning in the classroom at the time while you were building Brownmill with your co-founders? Because I remember, I feel like by the time I was at Rutgers, Brownmill was already like fully up, running and functioning. And I know it was because you gave me a shirt and a hat when I left. But you talk about like the conscious practice of like using your academic resources, what you're learning in the classroom, people around you, all those things to further whatever your entrepreneurial pursuit is.
Sure, for sure. So I'll say at Rutgers, especially the business school, we had some great teachers.
Shout out
And
to Alfred Blake.
yeah, honestly. And also like going into the business school, like I was probably one of the only black guys that was studying finance. So like like my first year was just a struggle because I couldn't really relate to just like my teacher or my classmates. But I had one teacher take from the side and it was like every example that I give you in this class, remove the company and put Brownmill in it
Mm.
and make it sound like it's your own company, even if you guys are not hitting these numbers. So for example, it'll be like Brownmill made $1 million. how much money should they put into marketing? And I'm like, oh, all right, this makes sense. Like, okay, we should put 20% into Instagram, 30% into that. So kind of pulling what I was learning from my finance classes directly into my company and vice versa just helped me excel in both places. And then I was studying finance. So finance is pretty much how to like grow your money, how to retain your money. So once I started taking my classes, I was like, yo, guys, like we need like a high yield savings account. And
Right.
yo, we need to put some money into like a Vanguard retirement fund. I remember founders are looking at me like, yo, retirement fund? I'm like, bro, like we need benefits. Like we need to put money into a retirement fund now because 10 years later, we'll get like our dividends and returns. And they used to look at me like I was crazy. But I'm
Hmm.
like, yo, this is what Apple is doing. This is what Amazon is doing right now. And it also helped me like be better positioned to raise money because you can't
Mm.
do it by yourself. You need to raise money. And when you're pitching to people who have money, you just can't go and not know your numbers. Like,
Yep.
we made around 10,000 last year. Like they want to know exact numbers, how much debt you have. And these are all terms that maybe if you haven't heard them before, they might be a little confusing. But since I was in class every day, like hearing these terms, they became like second nature. So it just
Mhm.
helped position the company, pitch, and like be able to expand the way we want it to go.
Absolutely. And so that's definitely easier to roll with if your side hustle is in some way, shape, or form related to something that you're doing, to your academic pursuits, right? To your major. But even if it isn't, it doesn't mean at the end of the day that you shouldn't find ways to make it all come to life and make it palatable and understandable to you beyond just I'm giving you something or I'm providing something and getting money back, and that's it, right? The goal is to earn money so that you can position yourself to be financially comfortable and do more of the things that you want to do. So I heard, obviously, we know that you co-founded the company and you mentioned, talking to them about the things that you were learning. In your opinion, do you think it's better to start a side hustle with your friends or start it on your own and then decide like where's the give and take or the push and pull? I will say in my own experience, I have a vending machine company. I run it by myself. And there are days where I'm like, I'm a woman. I have nails. Why am I lifting this? Why am I lifting
Yeah.
these juices and this soda? Or, like, man, I wish I had somebody else to go back and forth with. But there are other days where, wow, we had a fantastic month. Thank God I don't have to share any of these profits with anybody. So, yeah, can you talk to us about the value of working by yourself and then also working with a team?
Definitely. I'll say you should definitely build a team when the time comes. So
Mhm.
you start a side hustle with your friends. I vote no, personally. And people say, like, what about Brownmill? So honestly, we weren't friends when the company first started. Like, these guys are older than me. I was the youngest person. I was a freshman. Justice was a junior. Ty was a sophomore. So we weren't even in the same social circles. So when we first started the company, it wasn't hard for us to like hold each other accountable because I'm
Mm.
like, I don't even have a personal relationship with these guys and they're messing up my money. And we had like a talk and somebody was like, were you guys cool with the company being named Brown Mill because it's named after Justice's grandparents? And I was like, because we weren't friends and nothing was personal, as soon as I heard Brown, I was like, oh, that's a good marketing name. Like it just sounds like cool off the tongue. I mean, it could have been called Agyemang and Son or the Agyemang.
Right.
Because we had like that business view on the name, that
Mhm.
personal side never started. But I've seen companies where they started their friends, one friend is doing more work than the other one. And like because they're friends, they don't want to say anything. And
Mhm.
it's like it's weird to hold each other accountable. And like how many of us hold our friends accountable on a day to day? So imagine in business. So I say the best way to start is by yourself and then find people who could fill in the gaps that you can't fill in. And most of the times they won't be your friends. And you
Mhm.
guys could be friends through the company. Like I'm friends with the Brown Mill team now, but because we had that level of communication to begin with, it's not hard for me to hold them accountable. It won't come off left guard like, yo, quick, you're bugging. We're
Yeah.
best friends. It's kind of like, yeah, I understand. Like, we got to get this ball rolling. So start with yourself. Definitely build a team. But if your friend is not cutting it, then yeah, probably just do it yourself.
Yeah. It sounds like don't be afraid to cut them loose.
For
Um,
sure.
and also, I mean, similar to what we were talking about regarding benchmarks to know if you're hitting your financial goals, benchmarks and accountability are equally as important. Your potential partners to determine if they're doing their job, or if you even actually need them, or if it's something that you can do yourself. So there's a lot of constant evaluation that seems to be going on when you're in any job, but most certainly when you're doing something in the entrepreneurial space. So those are some of our formal questions. And now we have a segment that we call Unsexy Truth and Painful Advice. Unsexy part about entrepreneurship, right? If you're on Instagram, everyone makes entrepreneurship sound like it's the most easiest, straightforward. You put in $2, you get 2 million 2 weeks later, and then generational wealth. And so if you don't mind just sharing some of your sort of raw and unfiltered, the hidden realities of entrepreneurship, things that folks should be aware of, and whatever advice that you may have for them as well.
For sure. This is such a great question. I'll say number one, there's pros and cons to ambition. With ambition being goal-oriented, you could be so focused on the goal, you forget about other things, including like family, love life, social life. So even in college, there'll be some times where I'm just like, yo, we have to hit the sales goal. You have to hit the sales goal. And I have friends like, yo, there's a birthday party. I gotta sell these hats. But it's like, at the end of the day, like you're human. You're also in college. You should allow yourself to have fun. So that's why benchmarks are important. But for me, it's something I had to learn the hard way. I had to learn like a couple of friends were like, yo, man, we understand you're building this company, but we haven't hung out with you in like 3 days, bro. We haven't seen you in 3 weeks. So I had to take a step back. Another thing is just the time. Like it is a sacrifice of your time. And if you're not the most organized to begin with, it probably won't be the best thing to do. Like if you find yourself going to class and doing your office hours and you come home and you're exhausted and you're tired and you can't even make it to class, I don't recommend adding a side hustle on top of that, because now you're just adding like another hour allocation. Like you should have like a side hustle should come when you finish class and you have like 4 to 5 hours and you're like, okay, now I have time to ideate. You don't want to kill yourself for the side hustle, because eventually with your college degree, you are going to make some money. Side hustle should just be a supplemental thing. And then on top of that, like mental health, like really caring for your mental health and not burning out. Because if you burn out, you can't do anything. So for me, like for the last 5 years, I've been working a 9 to 5 and doing Brownmill. And we just opened the store like 3 years ago. So there was like last year was a point in time, I'm like, yo, I'm super tired. Like I need like a break because it was always on go. And when you're always on go, you realize you're not even thinking straight. You're not even like really reflecting on decisions or choices. You're just kind of like going. So it took me a while to realize like self-care is important. I needed to focus on my mental health. And sometimes some opportunities to go away if you need to prioritize yourself. Like things come, things go, but you're like the most important. If you're not good, nothing else you do is going to be good. So those are my words of advice.
That is awesome. Last thing, which is important to share. So Brownmill has hit some major bags in its time, and in the time that it's been running. The most recent being your partnership with Urban Outfitters, which we are super proud of. In addition to that, we know that your clothing has been featured on movies, on Netflix, and in other spaces. Can you just talk to us about I don't want to say the importance, but how you essentially position the company to be available, I guess, for these sort of bigger bags, and what things are important to keep in mind when you're pursuing that?
For sure. Honestly, you got to be prepared. I
Mm-hmm.
remember like graduating college, we were on social media looking at all these companies like doing all these big things, and we're like, yo, when this is gonna happen to us? And the way you imagine certain things happening is not the way it actually happens. Like you have to be prepared. So even with the Dwayne Wade, like Gabrielle Union featured us in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
We were just in the store one night and Gabrielle Union walked into the store. No announcement, nothing. But it was kind of like the store would have been trashy or unclean. She probably would have walked out, but we clean the store every day. So when she walked into the store, she was like, yo, is this black owned? That was her first question. And we're like, yeah. And she's like, all right, I need to like hook you guys up. So being prepared for those opportunities. And then when opportunities come, you're just ready to go. There's no like hesitation.
Is that saying, stay ready so you don't got to get ready?
Sure, for sure.
Awesome. Well, we are at our time. I am so thankful that we were able to have this very, very fruitful conversation. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit juiced up now, feeling like, all right, let me go and open up and look at my vending machine numbers. So, on behalf of the Fly Network, we say thank you. Also, welcome to the Nest. You are part of the Fly family. And with that, we say thank you so much.
Bye, guys.